One of the greatest things I learned from Bill Crosland was the use of spiritual gifts. Bill had the unique ability to, whenever he met somebody, to always remember the name, was always welcoming and smiling and encouraging. When I think of Bill, Bill was a great encourager. Throughout my time that I knew him, Bill encouraged me the times I was without a job. He always provided a way to give me peace of mind and comfort me in that time. He also encouraged me as I took on the role of Sunday school teacher and just in everything that I encountered in life. He was always there to be a great encourager. One thing I always remember about Bill, Bill was always late to Sunday school class, 5 to 10 minutes, because he's always talking to somebody. And it never, without fail, it could be 0 degrees outside and a 50-mile-an-hour wind, Bill's always burning up hot. And he'd always come in the room, open the door, open the window, or turn the air conditioner, I think just to aggravate Margaret and Dana. So that's, that's Bill.
I've known Bill since our kids were 3 years old. Our kids played basketball together. They played YMCA, and Bill was Deandra's very first coach. And he was always out to talk to people, and he was the first person that spoke to us when we walked into the gym. And our kids have just grown up knowing that Cross was very important to Bill, and that they wanted to he wanted them to focus on knowing Cross. And we started Awana here at Bear Cove, and Bill was gun-ho with that and taught the kids and was encouraging all the time. Our kids were in Fuel together. That was middle school age. We had an event during that was around Halloween. But before that, in our Sunday school class one Sunday morning, Bill and Mark Frazier had went to Africa, I think, and they come back and they Bill was telling us, he said, all the kids kept coming around and saying, John Cena, John Cena. We were like, who's John Cena? At that time, we had no idea who John Cena was. So I pulled out a picture of John Cena, and if you've seen John Cena, Bill Crosland looks just like John Cena. And so after that, back to the story with the Fuel, Tracy bought Bill some inflatable arms, and Bill put those on, and he went through, come through the gym, and he was yelling and hollering, and those kids just absolutely loved him. So he was always putting Cross first in whatever actions and words that he did. So if you know Bill well, you know that his heart and passion is for others and to see them. We played church league softball one year, and Bill was our pitcher. And I played second base, and I would get so frustrated with Bill because when he was pitching the ball, he would pitch a bad pitch and he would say, oh, my bad. It's like, Bill, stop telling them that. Just throw the ball and let them hit it. So Bill was always an encourager and it means so much in our lives, and he's just done a wonderful thing showing our kids that you walk the walk and you talk the talk.
First of all, Bill and I grew up about the same area of East Tennessee, except we went to rival high schools. He was a Powell Panther. I was a Halls Red Devil. Of course, we were years apart. So every once in a while, I'd come up to Bill and say, hey, Bill, shoo, shoo, what's that smell? P-O-W-E-L-L. That was our rant that we used to do. He'd look at me and he'd give me that big old grin. He'd say, didn't have much of a basketball team, did you? And he was right, we didn't. But what Bill did for me, Bill inspired me to be a Sunday school teacher. God called me. But it was Bill that inspired the type of teacher I was. He came up to me one Sunday and was, hey kid, Tracy and the boys and I are going out of town next week. You wanna take the class for me? I was scared to death. Teaching an adult class, went through it, got the book and read through it, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to kind of start observing a little bit more. So Bill, he had the book, but he went so much deeper. He would do so much more in a class. He would take it outside the box. So when I decided to answer the call and be a teacher of second and third graders, I wanted to take it outside the box. That's why I have the inspiration of my red toolbox. For all the kids that I've had or have seen me teach, they know when I've got the red box, we're either going to catch something on fire or we're going to blow something up and we're going to have a good lesson out of it. God called me, but Bill inspired me to be that kind of a teacher.
I had not been in Sunday school since I was a teenager. And when we started coming back to church, everybody said, go to Bill's class, go to Bill's class. And so we went to Bill's class, and the very first Sunday we decided to go, Bill wasn't there. He was on the mission trip playing basketball and pretending to be John Cena. We loved his class. The next week we went back, and it was my class. I felt like it was my class. It was a very passionate Sunday school class. Sometimes we were so passionate they would move us, but I loved our Sunday school class. We were very loud, but we were happy. We cried a lot. We laughed a lot. Bill was a great storyteller. Most of his stories were about Tracy and things she did. Sometimes she would walk in class and we would all just die laughing, and she'd say, "What did he say?" But I learned from Bill that it's very important to have a relationship with Christ.
I met Bill Crosland back years ago when Peyton Cade was probably around 7 years old. Bear Co had a co-ed softball team down in Doyle, and I was the umpire, and I got to be around Bill, and I wanted Bill to help me coach baseball. We coached pitching league together. We have coached basketball, upper basketball together. But Bill was like a big brother to me. Even though I was older, I looked up to Bill. I respected him. I've learned so much from Bill. His lovingness, his kindness, and his caringness. We've been around his family a whole lot. We spent time with him. We've been on mission trips with him, vacations, ball games. There'd be times that I would pray to God that I would want for him to let me be like Bill, because of what I could see Bill, how he could reach out to people. And I've never had a friend like Bill, that every time that I seen Bill, he'd always reach out his hand and shake my hand. And I'll never forget that. And I was always watching Bill, like at church, or when we'd be out at ball games, just how he interacted with people. And I would just always want that to be a part of me. And I just won't never forget Bill. And you know, there's going to be a day I'll get to sit down with him and talk about basketball and just things that we've been through together. And we'll all miss him, but his spirit lives on. I see it in his boys every day.
Bill Crosland. As somebody else said, I don't really know where to start, but I've got so many memories of Bill, and about 99.9% of them are basically hilarious. The first time we played basketball together, it was right after the church had built the gym, and a bunch of guys from church decided we were going to play ball. Well, the thing was, I hadn't played in 10 years. I'd known Mark for a long time. Mark's super athletic, but Bill was an incredible basketball player. So the first night we're out here, Mark's guarding Bill. Mark fouls Bill, and Bill takes a couple little steps and does him a reverse layup and scores. Well, Mark thought the foul was on the floor, which means the basket doesn't count, and Bill wanted the basket. So the next time Bill got the ball, Mark fouled him a little bit harder. Bill once again done the same thing, went around his back or something and flipped it up, and it went in again. So the play went on. Of course, whenever somebody scores twice, you give them the ball back. So they give the ball back to Bill. Well, this time, Mark just tackled Bill. This is the first night we've played, and Bill's laying on the floor, and he's looking up at Mark, and Mark's on top of him. And Bill says, "Mark, we can't do this." And almost every story I think of Bill is something to do with funny like that. You know, it was hilarious being there when you know how both of them are, how competitive they are. Okay, one more story about Bill. As I said, most of them are funny. Mark and I play golf. We're not very good. Bill and Larry also play golf, and they're a little worse than me and Mark. So we go to a Potter's tournament in Crossville, and we fool around and somehow win the tournament. I don't know how it happened, but when we got there, they served us lunch. We had grilled pork chops. I don't remember what it was. It was good. But we played for like 6 hours. Well, Larry had drove separate, and me and Bill had rode with Mark. So me and Mark decided we wanted to go to Ruby Tuesdays and eat, because at the time in Crossville, that's the only sit-down restaurant there was. Well, we get to the restaurant. We sit down. We order. They ask what we want to drink. Of course, we get Cokes, whatever, tea, and Bill ordered water. They come back in a few minutes to take our order, and Mark orders and I order, and Bill says, I'm good. He said, all I need is water. So, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes later, the food comes around, and we get our food. Bill reaches in his pocket. Bill has went back to the buffet at the golf course and has a pocket full of grilled pork chops that have been sitting out for, I don't know, 6-8 hours. And Bill sits there and eats his pork chops and eats some bread out of the basket and drinks water. There are a couple things that I learned from Bill that really stand out to me. Number one, as somebody else had mentioned, would be the first time I ever met Bill, he made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. If Bill didn't know me, and as someone else said, he always shook your hand whenever you met him. And as watching him, it wasn't just me that he did that to. I wasn't anybody special. Bill greeted every person that he came into contact with that way. He would shake their hand and make whoever was make them feel like they were in the spotlight. He was very encouraging, and that's something that I'm not very good at, that I need to try to do better. Second thing that stands out to me about Bill, that something I would strive to be first, that I learned from him, would be that he always put God first in everything he did. That was very apparent just by watching him. And the second thing would be that he put his family second. I know the 8 or 10 years that I got to know Bill, we talked probably once or twice a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I don't think I ever had a conversation with Bill that did not involve talking about Tracy or talking about his boys, Cade and Cole. And it's very apparent the type of influence Bill was on them just by getting to watch Cade and Cole. They're two of the finest young men that I think I've ever met. And I hope as I get older, the things that I've learned from Bill, I hope one day that I can just grow up to be half the man that Bill Crosland was. And also I hope that I can be half the Christian that Bill Crosland was. He was just a blessing to everyone around him. And one thing in closing I think Bill would want us to say is that even though we talk about how good Bill was and how good of a Christian Bill was, Bill would want everybody to know that he was a sinner. It was Jesus that made Bill who he was. Bill understood that he was a sinner like everybody else. And it was through God's grace that Bill was able to have the relationship that he was and be the influence that he was on everybody that he met.
Con los terroristas.
And do the Harlem Shake.